Good morning. Welcome to this LinkedIn and Twitter, or I guess X Live, where we're going to be talking a little bit about the economy and work and important things for businesses who are trying to survive in this economy. I am Andrew Krapschetz, the CEO and founder of RedBalloon.work, and I'm joined today by David Bahnsen, a very distinguished guest who is in the New York office today. And if you don't know David Bahnsen, he has written a variety of books, all of them very, very useful. And he's written his most recent book, Full-Time Work, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. But David is the founder, CEO, grand poobah of the Bahnsen Group, and is a large management firm that will take care of your money and actually thinks about dividends, not just trying to follow the latest exciting trend. He's also an unapologetic Christian, which makes him a double positive for the world. So, David, thank you for joining me. And we're excited about this conversation.
Well, Andrew, it's great to be with you. I love what you're doing. Love Red Balloon. And as you say it, it occurs to me that I think an apologetic Christian is a contradiction in terms.
That is a really good point, and unfortunately, we have more of those than we should. Okay,
Not to be confused with an apologetical Christian.
that's right. Yeah, we're not Van Tillian, right? Okay, so I'd love to jump into the labor market. Obviously, something that I've spent a lot of my life thinking about, focused on, and obviously, work is how we drive prosperity. It's good for people. It's good for their souls. But I'd like to kind of phrase where I think we are in the labor market, and then I'm going to ask you to solve all of our problems. So, as we look at the labor market today, the U.S. population growth has slowed. Obviously, we have a lot of years of abortion as an example, but we also just have a birth rate that's below 2.1, which is what it's required to have the population at least stay stable. We don't have enough babies that are being produced, and therefore the population growth has gone down. We're seeing baby boomers retire at a much quicker rate. Some estimates think that 10,000 baby boomers a day are retiring in the U.S. right now. That's what Forbes thinks. You also have this Gen Z, and you have this whole generation that is getting beat up quite a bit, and some of it they deserve, and some of it is undeserved. But they've gone through a Marxist education at a major university. They come into the workplace, and employers don't like them. They don't want to hire them, and many of them don't want to work, and so they deserve all the bad credit that they've been getting. So, given that this is where the economy is, and by the way, we do the Freedom Economy Index where we talk to all these businesses and they don't want to hire Gen Zs. What do we do? How do we fix this? If you're a small business, what do you do if you want to hire reliable, good workers in this economy?
Well, there's a lot there. And I think the first part of the question is a macro question about the state of affairs in the economy and the labor market. And the second part of the question is a micro question about how an individual business goes about making individual decisions that are particular to their time and place circumstance in hiring individual people to join their organization, something you have to do at Red Balloon, I have to do at the Bahnsen Group. I usually am pretty good at offending people accidentally because I never choose to do it or want to do it. I will start with this, though. There's a ton of people that want to look at labor data through a political lens. They want to say something good, hoping it is good about their guy, or they want to say something bad, hoping it is bad about the guy they don't like. This labor market is a real inconvenience for people that want to be partisan about the labor market, because there's just simply no denial that it is a low unemployment rate as that BLS data point is intended to measure, which is the amount of people that don't have a job who are looking for a job, who consider themselves in the labor force. That is not the data point I care about most. Culturally, morally, spiritually, and economically, in terms of driving productivity growth, I care far more about the size of the labor force. But a real simple way to say it is one measures the amount of workers and one measures the amount of jobs.
Right.
And those are two different things. We do have a healthy labor market as measured by the amount of people that want a job being able to get one for the most part. The quits rate is way down. There are a lot less people that are taking it upon themselves to leave their job voluntarily, believing they have other options. That can be a leading indicator of things tightening. But this isn't a labor market, and the weekly jobless claims are the reinforcement. To those who say, oh, I see a disconnection between the household survey and the BLS, or a disconnect between ADP and BLS, the number that just really doesn't lie is people filing for unemployment weekly, and that number has stayed extremely low.
Right.
The problem that keeps me up at night, and not literally, but like I wrote a book about it. I pray for it, is the amount of people that have left the workforce. That's reasonably multi-generational, Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen X, and Boomer. And I think that is the crisis we face today. The 2.1 children per household is true. We're down to about 1.7, but we have to say it's only been true for a couple of years. That we really mostly, through the whole millennial time period of them becoming 20 and now getting up to 40, that most of that time period, Gen Y was breaking even in terms of fertility. Boomers are living longer, so the population grew. It has come down a bit, and we need a few more years demographically to see if there was a COVID pause around some of this procreation activity, or if we are looking at a new trend that's more European-like or Asian-like of a declining population. I'm not overly pessimistic nor overly optimistic. There's still something, in my opinion, not just in Christian circles where you and I live, but in America that's still reasonably, look, it's not pro 4 kids anymore. We lost that 3.8, 3.9 with the boomer generation being born. But 2.1 has been a pretty good hold spot. And I'm prayerful that as people start getting married a few years younger, I think this age 37, 38 first time marriage deal has been a disaster. And I'm hopeful Gen Z will get married a little younger than Gen Y. And then I think you'll start having a few more kids per household. I do.
Okay. So at a macro level, you think it's not necessarily the birth rate, the baby boomers retiring. Yeah, but they're living longer and there's a lot of them. You think that it is people who don't want to participate in the labor market. You think that is the biggest concern at a macro level. How do you think the influx of immigrants, both legal and illegal, is affecting the labor market and I would say inflation, given the cost of labor is a big part of the cost of goods and services sold to consumers?
Well, there's a lot of controversy around this point economically, and you invited the key operative question, legal and illegal, which makes it even more complicated.
Yeah, I did
But
that on purpose.
yeah, let's pretend for a second that there's only legal immigration, that the
Okay.
border is secure, but we do have a really healthy, robust process of Ellis Island immigration, people coming in, and we take away a lot of the heat because they want to naturalize, they want to learn the language, they want to assimilate, and it
Which
isn't
would be
all this.
so healthy. It'd be so good for America to have
Yeah.
that.
But see, a lot of people on the right now say it wouldn't.
I know.
That would be bad for jobs and bad for wages because lower skilled people enter and put downward pressure. And this is economic ignorance.
Yes.
They come in as a producer competing for jobs. I sure hope my American friends out there think they can compete with someone who's come in with no skills, education, or language. But let's say we don't think they can. They also come in as a consumer. We require more aggregate production of goods and services because for every legal immigrant coming in, they not only come in to look for a job, but they also come in with the desire to have shelter, food, services, and goods in the economy. Now, everything I just said is somewhat hypothetical because there's so much illegal going on, border issues. There is a multicultural fad that has done a lot of damage to the fabric of the country, and it's caused people to say things like, I don't want legal immigration either. I think it's emotional. I think they've poisoned the well. They've destroyed public trust, public credibility. But I got to be very clear, and I think you know this from your data analytics. We can debate all day long if the lower skilled wages would get filled if the immigrants coming from south of the border weren't there, and are there people that want those jobs agriculturally and at the lower end of the wage and skill level. We can't debate whether or not we need high skilled immigrants from India and Asia in technology. We absolutely do. It's
Right.
just simply undeniable. And so you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. This is a very difficult topic, and our public officials have done a great disservice by destroying public trust.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would love to see legal immigration at scale, because we know from Proverbs the wealth of a nation is the human capital that they have, and the people. I just finished reading a Thomas Sowell book where he talked about all of these immigrants that come in and generate unprecedented wealth for themselves, for their families, for their communities, and stopping that, I think, is economic suicide. Maybe that's extreme, but I think that is actually true. Okay, so that's at the macro level. At the micro level, you're a business. You're trying to hire, and obviously you're hiring. How do you think about the labor market? How has it changed your thinking with all of these dynamics going on right now?
Well, I think that we're in an interesting position that I still acknowledge. We have 61 people, we'll soon have 63, and we've been averaging somewhere around 10 to 20 new hires a year. I don't know if the number is at 100 or 200, but there's a head count at which I'm open to being proven wrong. But so far, I still believe we can hire personally, meaning without an institutional process where I just have to hope that people are like-minded and hope people are good character. And I think we have the ability to at least care about those things. We can get stuff wrong. There's only so much you can know from due diligence and vetting. But those companies that have thousands of employees that have to hire quickly and at scale, they have a much different challenge than I do. They're largely using algorithms and automation in a process that is just going to be highly fallible. So for me, we're not the same 10 to 20 person firm we used to be, but even with our rapid growth and now managing close to $5.5 billion, I intend to continue growing, and I intend to do it by telling people you're going to work in the office, you're going to work 5 days a week, and this is what we believe in at our firm, and we're going to follow all the relevant labor laws. Yet we are going to do so in a non-bureaucratic and non-HR type culture,
Yeah.
and that's not going to be for everybody. But I haven't had a single person in 4 years since the COVID insanity started, not one person push back on our work in office policy, in the fact that we kind of consider this a full-time job, not a place where you go to your adult coloring book class in the middle of the afternoon. I think there's, and we have people that are boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. It's cross-generational. It's funny because you said people are afraid to hire Gen Zers, and I'm more afraid of Gen Yers than Gen Zers. I think that with the young people, they want our feedback.
Yeah.
They want to be mentored. They're teachable. They're hungry. I think they need to be a little more patient. I don't really like very much hearing a 25-year-old say, I'm not totally fulfilled yet. And I'm like, yeah, because you're 25.
Yeah, you got a long way to go, sucker.
But I think that we've had an easier time. We have good people in all of those four generational brackets. But I really do believe generational theory. I think it's very different challenges and opportunities across each age segment.
Yeah. Well, and actually, I've talked to some employers that said they don't like to hire Gen Zs, but when they get a good Gen Zer, they're one of the best
Oh, yeah.
employees because they understand technology, they have creativity, they're not afraid of trying things, and so that has been my recommendation: is spend a little more time and effort making sure you're hiring the right person. But that doesn't mean you should avoid that generation entirely. Um, David, obviously, your book talks a lot about the theology of work. It focuses on how do we instill this work ethic and really the dignity that comes from hard work. Um, Big controversy in our world is, are you in office or remote work? I'm with you on this. I think that the human beings need other human beings. I think creativity, all of these things come from seeing other people and interacting with other people. Do you think there's a theological tie-in to being with other people while you're doing work and having it be better for your soul?
Yes, I very much do. I believe that from the garden, we were told to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. Economic activity is multiplicative. And I also want to just give my caveat. I can't really help the fact that people get upset on this every time I talk about it. I don't care much, but let me just do a caveat. People that were for 20 years working as an independent freelancer in an industry that for whatever reason didn't have a lot of social and human interaction. That's not really what I'm talking about or what you're really referencing here. I'm referring to the idea that all of a sudden at the COVID moment, something paradigmatically changed in society, where a company that does have an office culture, a factory culture, some form of interaction, that all of a sudden the rules changed because of the cloud or because of DoorDash or because of Zoom. It's ridiculous. The human principles here did not change. And you're right to bring up the social interaction, the human dynamic. And I want to add to one that kind of overlaps with it, which is mentorship.
Mm.
I just think it is beyond the pale rude for 50-year-olds and older. I turn 50 next month. I, in my 20s, had people in financial services on Wall Street put their arm around me and teach me. And I asked questions down the hallway, and I went and listened to research calls, and I looked at the trading desk, and I learned about wealth management by being there, by being mentored, by having
And
this
by
dynamic.
overhearing conversations with other people. Yes.
Spontaneously, organically. That's right. The notion that people over 50 now want to say, hey, those 25-year-olds don't want to come in. We don't need them to come in. It's all good. They are taking away the access to the mentorship and learning experience that we had. And so I think that it's short-sighted. The good news here is this isn't really that controversial anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody is now coming around to my way of thinking on this.
Yeah.
Big woke companies that said, the only debate I have, Andrew, is whether they ever meant it or not to begin with.
Yeah. Or they were just afraid.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is Salesforce said we're never going to make anyone come back in. And then they were building $1 billion tower in Chicago. And Facebook and Apple and Amazon and Google said, oh, yeah, where people can just skateboard around and wear pajamas. They don't have to come in. And in the meantime, they signed the biggest office leases in the history of New York City in New York during COVID. So I just don't fully buy it. And now, as we can see in the data, my favorite headline last year was when Zoom announced to their employees, we need you all to come back to work.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I could sit here and talk to you all day. I love economics. I love talking about these topics, but I'm going to end with a self-serving question because since I'm running the podcast or whatever this is, you said in the beginning you love RedBalloon and what we're doing. And this is my self-serving question. Why is that? What is it about RedBalloon? Why do you think it's important?
Look, Andrew, it's very important when I talk about the quality of people you're hiring. You want some degree of alignment, belief system. Let me tell you what I do mean by that and what I don't mean. First, what I don't mean is that somebody we're hiring has to agree with every single thing I believe politically, theologically, philosophically, even my favorite sports teams. That might be more important to me sometimes. But what I do mean is a general like-mindedness, that they know how to be, that they're not going to be a pain in the you-know-what, that they're not a lawsuit waiting to happen, right? That there's some general sense in which in the current cultural moment, they're more likely to be aligned than not aligned. And I think that RedBalloon has a self-selecting benefit in that there are people who care about freedom, they're patriotic, and they're anti-HR. What I mean by that is not anti-knowing, where some of the rules and stipulations are and your payroll and benefits. I mean, anti-excessive regulation, anti-building a business unit around red tape and bureaucracy. I think RedBalloon provides a way to hire employees that is not rooted in what has become a cult, the DEI cult that is damaging productivity. It is anti-meritocratic, it's anti-American, and of course, it's anti-Christian.
Yeah. Well, and I would even say a lot of the DEI training is a liturgy. It's designed to make you think a different way, right? Think a different way about yourself, about your coworker, about the world. And when you think like that, then all of a sudden you're in this tension that turns into lawsuits. In fact, we just did a study. I'm going to hold it up here. We just did a study on how to avoid a lawsuit. If you want to download that, you can go to RedBalloon because 75% of employers in the last 5 years in America have dealt with some labor-based lawsuit. 75%. You think about the productivity loss, the destruction of prosperity that is. And if we can help employers avoid that, we would love to. Look, we've got to wrap up. People have a day to get to. I'm grateful for your time. I'm grateful for your book. If you've not read the book, full time, I would highly recommend it. This is a book that I found helpful, not only in kind of a macro theological level, but also in just how to manage the people that work for me. So I would encourage everyone to get that book, read it. David, I'm thankful for your time. I hope everyone has a great day.